Yo, listen. This wasn't just a soccer game. This wasn't just Iran walking out with a 0-0 draw against Belgium and calling it a night. Nah, this was way deeper than that. Because when that final whistle hit inside Los Angeles Stadium on Saturday night, Iran's players didn't just sprint into the tunnel, grab their bags, and dip like nothing happened. They stayed. They gathered in that locker room. And before they left, before they got on that charter flight back to Tijuana, they picked up a pen and left behind something that might end up being one of the coldest, most powerful moments of this entire World Cup. Not a tweet, not some PR statement, not some basic post-match quote, a handwritten note, a real note, left inside the stadium for the fans who came out wearing Iran's colors thousands of miles away from home. And that right there tells you everything about this team. The note basically said, from ancient Persia to the civilized Iran of today, the spirit of Iran is still alive, still standing, still unbroken. We came to Los Angeles with pride, competed with honor, and we leave with dignity. Now come on, tell me that doesn't hit different. Because in a tournament where everybody's chasing highlights, goals, drama, and viral clips, Iran gave us something else. They gave us a moment, a human moment, a reminder that football is not always about the scoreboard. Sometimes it's about what a team carries in its chest, when everything around them is stacked against them. And that's why this 0-0 draw against Belgium is not just a 0-0 draw. If you look at the score and say, okay, boring game, no goals, then I'm telling you straight up, you missed the whole story. Because Iran didn't walk into this match with normal preparation. They didn't come into Los Angeles fresh, relaxed, and ready like some perfect World Cup setup. Their domestic league had been shut down since February. 17 of their 26 players had not played a competitive match in more than 4 months. 4 months. In football terms, that's not just rust. That's your rhythm gone, your match sharpness gone, your timing gone. And then on top of that, they were based in Tijuana, Mexico, flying into the United States on match days and heading back before midnight. Bro, that's not a World Cup camp. That sounds like a survival mission. Now think about this from the player's point of view. You're not getting proper recovery. You're not getting a normal routine. You're not playing league matches. Your friendly games get canceled. Your ticket allocation gets revoked. You're dealing with travel, pressure, politics, noise. And then somebody says, all right, now go play Belgium. Belgium, a top-level European team with world-class players, more rhythm, more comfort, more stability, more everything. And Iran still walked out there and said, cool, let's run it. That's the part that makes this crazy. Belgium had the ball. Belgium had the territory. Belgium had the names. De Bruyne was looking for those killer passes. Lukaku was trying to bully defenders in the box. Belgium kept pushing, kept testing, kept trying to turn pressure into a goal. But Iran never folded. They bent a little, sure. They got pushed back, yeah. But they never broke. And that's a big difference. Because defending against Belgium for 90 minutes is not just standing in front of goal and hoping for the best. That takes structure. That takes discipline. That takes communication. That takes every player knowing exactly when to step, when to drop, when to cover, when to take the hit, and when to trust the man behind them. And the man behind them? Alireza Berenvand. That dude was different on the night. 7 saves. 7. And not just easy little warm-up saves either. We're talking diving stops, high claims, pressure moments, shots that could have flipped the whole story in 1 second. He wasn't just playing goalkeeper. He was protecting the whole nation's heartbeat in that box. Before the tournament, he said he would keep Iran's goal sealed like the Strait of Hormuz. That's a wild line. That's a serious promise. And against Belgium, he backed it up. Save after save, minute after minute. He made that promise feel real. And look, this is where I want to slow it down for a second. Because when a goalkeeper has a game like that, people love to say, oh, he saved them. And yeah, he did. But that also tells you the whole team was fighting. A keeper can make 7 saves, but if the players in front of him lose their heads, it doesn't matter. Iran's back line stayed locked in. Their midfield worked like crazy. Their wide players tracked back. The whole team suffered together. And sometimes that's what World Cup football is. It's not always pretty. It's not always TikTok highlights and smooth passing sequences. Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's legs burning in the 85th minute and still getting back into shape. Sometimes it's having no match rhythm for months and still throwing your body in front of a shot because your country is watching. Now before we go deeper, let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Jemmy, and I break down big football moments, big matches, and the stories behind the scorelines. Not just who won, not just who scored, but what actually happened, what went right, what went wrong, what the team showed mentally and tactically, and why certain games hit way harder than people realize. So if you love football with emotion, pressure, analysis, and real talk, stay locked in, because this Iran-Belgium game has layers. Now let's talk about the moment Iran almost flipped the whole script. 24th minute, free kick routine, clean setup, smart movement. Belgium gets caught for a second, Iran executes it beautifully, and Mehdi finishes. The celebration starts, the fans lose it. For a few seconds, Iran are ahead. For a few seconds, it feels like this might be one of those World Cup moments people talk about forever. But then VAR steps in. Marginal offside, goal wiped off. Just like that. And that's brutal. That is the slimmest line between history and heartbreak. One tiny movement, one little lean, one frame on a screen, and the goal is gone. And this is where I want to ask you something. Was that offside the correct call? Maybe yes by the rules. But emotionally, man, that one hurt. Because you could feel what that goal would have meant. Not just for the players, but for the fans. For the group table. For the story. That was the kind of goal that changes a team's tournament. Instead, Iran had to reset mentally and keep fighting like nothing happened. And that right there takes maturity. A lot of teams lose a goal like that and start complaining, start rushing, start losing focus. Iran didn't. They stayed in the fight. Then the game got even crazier. Belgium's Nathan made a huge mistake and suddenly Taremi is running clear. He's gone. He's got space. The whole stadium can feel the danger. And then boom, he gets pulled down. Straight red card. Belgium down to 10 men. 25 minutes left. Now the whole vibe changes. Because at that point, Iran had every reason to believe, this is our moment. This is where we take it. Belgium were vulnerable. Iran started pushing. The pressure shifted. The game opened up, and you could feel the chance of a winner hanging in the air. But here's the thing. Belgium still had Courtois. And Courtois did what elite goalkeepers do. He kept them alive. He made the saves he had to make. He controlled his area. He slowed the game when Belgium needed to breathe. And that's why the match stayed 0-0. Iran had the man advantage. Iran had the emotional push. But Belgium still had enough quality and enough experience to survive. So when people say Iran should have won after the red card, I get it. I understand that argument. But you also have to respect that scoring against a desperate Belgium side with Courtois in goal is not easy. Now let's be real. Iran will probably look back at this game with mixed feelings. On one side, they just held Belgium to a draw under insane conditions. That's massive. On the other side, they had a goal ruled out and played against 10 men for the final stretch. So yeah, there's pride. But there's also that little feeling of, man, we could have taken all 3 points. And that's football. Sometimes your greatest result still leaves you wondering what could have been. Belgium's coach Rudi Garcia said after the game that Belgium could have won by 3 goals, but weren't efficient enough. And honestly, that quote tells you a lot. Because from Belgium's point of view, he's not wrong. They had chances. They had the ball. They had moments where they should have punished Iran. But from Iran's point of view, that quote almost makes the result look even bigger. Because Belgium are basically admitting, we had enough to win big. And yet they didn't. Why? Because Iran refused to let the game become what Belgium wanted it to become. Because Bieranvon was locked in. Because the defense stayed alive. Because the players kept fighting even when their legs had every reason to quit. And that's what makes Coach Amir Galana's words hit so hard. He said he wanted to go back 6 months. He talked about war conditions, the league not operating, teams canceling games against them, and Iran coming to the World Cup in the worst possible conditions. Then he said playing 2 games without a loss was a great achievement, something that would be written in Iran's football history. And honestly, when you hear everything they dealt with, he has a point. Because World Cup teams usually obsess over details. Training camps, friendlies, recovery, rhythm, travel, nutrition, scouting, everything. Iran had chaos. And somehow inside that chaos, they built a team that could stand toe-to-toe with Belgium and not lose. The travel part is wild too. Galanoe said they had to fly right after the match, that they weren't even being allowed proper recovery, and that they arrived at the match venue with less than 16 hours to go. less than 16 hours before facing Belgium. Come on, that is not normal. That is not how elite competition is supposed to work. And he also talked about being on the road for 40 hours just to go to another country and play. 40 hours of travel for 90 minutes of football. And still they stepped onto that pitch and gave everything. Now this is where I think the locker room note becomes bigger than the match itself. Because that note wasn't just "thank you, fans." It wasn't just "we appreciate the support." It was identity. It was the players saying, "You can put us through difficult conditions. You can make the road harder. You can take away comfort. You can cancel games. You can make us travel. But you cannot take away who we are." That's why those words matter. Pride, honor, dignity. Those aren't random words. That's the mindset of a group that knows they're carrying something bigger than themselves. And you could see that in the way they played. Iran didn't play like a team looking for sympathy. They didn't play like victims. They didn't go out there begging the world to understand their problems. They just played. They defended. They suffered. They almost scored. They survived Belgium. And then they left behind a note that said everything they didn't need to scream into a microphone. Now let's talk mistakes, because this is a review and we have to keep it real. Iran were brave. Iran were disciplined. But they still missed a huge chance to take control of Group G. When Belgium went down to 10 men, Iran had to find a way to create cleaner chances. They pushed, but they didn't fully punish Belgium. The decision-making in the final third could have been sharper. The tempo could have been quicker. Some attacks needed one less touch. Some wide deliveries needed better timing. When you get a man advantage at the World Cup, especially against a team like Belgium, you have to make them feel that pain every single minute. Iran had the energy, but they didn't quite find that final killer moment. But on the flip side, you also have to give them credit for not getting reckless. A lot of teams go a man up and start throwing bodies forward like crazy. Then one counterattack kills them. Iran stayed balanced. They still respected Belgium's quality. And maybe that's why they walked away with a point instead of losing everything. So was it a missed opportunity? Yes. Was it still a smart result? Also yes. That's the balance. For Belgium, this game raises questions. Big questions. How do you have more of the ball, more chances, more attacking talent, and still end with 0 goals? At some point, possession has to become punishment. Territory has to become goals. Belgium had the tools, but they didn't finish the job. And when you let an under-pressure team grow into belief, you give them power. That's exactly what happened. Every missed Belgium chance made Iran stronger. Every Biran save made the Iranian players believe more. Every minute at 0-0 made the stadium feel like something special was happening. And now Group G is wide open. Iran go into the final match against Egypt with everything still alive. That game is going to be massive, not just because of the table, but because of the emotional weight Iran are carrying. If they win, they almost certainly move forward. If they lose, all this pride and all this fight could still end in heartbreak. That's what makes tournament football so brutal. One night can make you a legend. One mistake can send you home. So now I want to hear from you. What did you see in this Iran performance? Was this one of the most inspiring results of the World Cup so far? Did Iran deserve more than a draw? Should they have gone harder after Belgium's red card? And what about Biranvand? Was he the man of the match, or was this more about the entire team's defensive heart? Drop your take in the comments, because this is one of those games where the scoreline says nothing, but the story says everything. And honestly, that handwritten note might travel further than the match highlights. Goals get replayed, saves get clipped, red cards get debated. But words like "we came with pride," "competed with honor," and "leave with dignity" stick around. Because those words came from a team that had every excuse to fall apart and still didn't. They came from players who were tired, underprepared, and stretched thin, but still found a way to represent themselves with class. That's why this match matters. Iran didn't beat Belgium on the scoreboard, but they did something almost as powerful. They made people respect them. They made people talk about their fight. They made their supporters feel seen. And sometimes, in a World Cup, that can mean just as much as a win. Now the question is simple. Can they finish the job against Egypt? Can this story continue? Can Biranvand seal the goal one more time? Can Iran turn pride and dignity into progression? Because after what we saw in Los Angeles, one thing is clear. Iran are not done yet. Not even close. If this story gave you chills, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, and stay locked in. because we're going to keep breaking down the biggest World Cup moments with real emotion, real analysis, and no boring talk. And before you go, comment one word for Iran's performance: pride, honor, or dignity. I'll see you in the next one.